All right, everyone. Welcome to the Wolfpack Network. This is another Wolfpack episode. I'm Rob. He's Tony. I went back and I looked, and I think this is Wolfpack episode 20, if we're keeping count. I don't even know if this is worthy of keeping count, but Tony, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, it's always worthy keeping count. Yeah, it's provocative.
Is it? There's absolutely nothing provocative about that, in my opinion. But yeah, no. So we decided to randomly drop an episode because we hadn't dropped an episode in a hot minute on the Wolfpack Network. But Iowa Dave has been absolutely holding it down and releasing some incredible content. So shout out to Iowa Dave and the Shallow End, man. What have you been thinking about his episodes?
Yeah, I know. He definitely has his own like flow and niche, whatever you want to call it. And it's pretty cool, man. I think sometimes it's kind of hard to find new ways to do this. This has all kind of been beaten to death a little bit, but yeah, he seems to come at it with a fresh view, and he's doing his thing, man.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It's good stuff, and I agree. And I know him and I have had a lot of conversations behind the scenes as well. And he's doing it. So hopefully he continues to rock on because it seems like people are enjoying it. Big up to you and Oz with Cousins. How many episodes are you guys on now?
Ooh, I think we just hit 135.
Man.
Yeah, that's crazy to think, man. Because we're on record with saying, we're not experts at this, but it's just been a verbal diary since day one. So people have come along for the ride. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, and if Miss Johnson, your fourth grade teacher, could see you now, and she said, Tony, it ain't gonna be SHI, and it was like, you know what? No, look, I'm on episode 135, so the joke's on you. The egg's on your face, Miss Johnson.
You're not too far off. Our third grade teacher was actually Mrs. Jackson.
See, and she told you ain't gonna be either. So it's like, no, good stuff, man. That's awesome. Yeah, so here we are, knocking out another episode. Sports Card Therapist, I'm on episode this week. I'll be dropping 212. So I'm actually gonna have Dan the Great Curator back on.
Oh boy.
Yeah, man. So he's been on, I think he's been on. This is going to be his third time on, I believe. So, and yeah, I think I feel like most of us, us, at least myself and Cousins anyways, we're kind of on record of being like, yeah, we're pro Great Curator, right? We're pro Dan, not maybe with everything, but I don't think we've ever really slandered him. So
no, I'm curious to see what, I mean, I know what he's, up to just from following his content, but I don't want to say he's not on people's because he was like main stage there for a while on Instagram too. Like sometimes we get caught up that the whole hobby only happens on Instagram, and that's definitely not true. But yeah, he's kind of changed his focus on some of the stuff he collects and sells and all that stuff. So it's gonna be fun to hear you guys chop it up.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. Looking forward to it, and I think you're right. I think you like the hobby, social media, like. I think people can get caught up, myself included. I'm like not any different from that, like I can, if the hobby Instagram has been like all the way left for a week, I'm like, man, this hobby is all the way left right now. And it's like, well, probably not. Like my in my own narrow scope of things, the hobby is all the way left because that's kind of what I've been seeing. But even to keep it on social media, the hobby Twitter is vastly different than the hobby Instagram, and the hobby Facebook is vastly different as well. So it's like, and you think about, the hobby Facebook, I'm not very active on there at all, but I think like each group, like you have to really be in a group, right? And then when you're in
Yeah,
that group, each group has its own kind of feel. But at the end of the day, it is mostly just about the cards. Whereas, it's like it's mostly all like for sale.
yeah,
And maybe you could get a vibe of the group by like reading the comments, and if like certain guys like to comment stuff and break balls and stuff. But
yeah.
I think, the hobby Twitter and the hobby Instagram are definitely where I think more things have life and personality. But the hobby Twitter, I gotta say, it feels more about buying and selling as well. Like for me, it feels like I see so many buy sell trade threads, and maybe it's because that's all I follow. But then when it comes to Instagram, it's like it almost feels like I don't know, like the MySpace for the hobby or something.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's where you can go and stunt on the hobby. Yeah, the Facebook thing, that's a good point. I belong to it. That's like the only thing I have a Facebook for is for card stuff, and each one is an individual group, and there isn't. And what's weird when you join those groups, it's a bunch of like-minded people for the as far as the way they collect. Like you said, there might be a little comment here and there. You can be like, oh, I know how this dude rolls, but yeah, it's definitely not what the hobby on Instagram is. So yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way, but it's very true. Like right now, I just a buddy of mine sent me a link for something, and it's like vintage basketball cards or whatever. And everybody in there, that's all they talk about. They keep it and to give, I'll give the moderators credit too. I mean, you probably you have experience with that, obviously. Anytime stuff goes out of whack, boom, they either put them in timeout or they boot them all together. Like this is about the cards and only the cards. So take all that other stuff out of here. Where Instagram is more like a little bit wild, wild west. So
Definitely. And I tell you, even though I might have, experience like moderating huge groups, at the end of the day, it's totally different than what my experience is, because this experience that like I'm thinking of, most of these card groups have like 50,000 or less members.
mhm,
And they're mostly buy sell trade. But I would like, I think where it is very much alike is for in the groups that I started, and they're not sports card groups,
mhm,
but the groups that I started, I'm only as strong as my moderators that I have in there. Like, I need to make sure I have really good people that are like the eyes and ears of that group. And when you're talking about sports card groups now you're talking about like people getting scammed out of money. And don't get me wrong, I kind of have a little bit of that stuff going on in my group, because people from like scammers will, post things, and I have a lot of old women in my group because I run the Golden
yeah.
Girls group. So I have the biggest Golden Girls group on Facebook. Okay. Nah, man, listen, I take pride in that. I used to watch the Golden Girls with my grandmother all the time. And
Me
so
too, but not enough to be
oh,
like whoa.
dude, I love the gold. I'll put on the Golden Girls any day of the week, and Seinfeld. So I have like the second biggest Seinfeld group, Seinfeld Fanatics, and then I have the biggest Golden Girls, the Golden Girl Fanatics. So, and I'll tell you what, listen, the Golden Girl group was so slow to grow. After like 3 years, it only had like 2,000 members, and then
Well, of course it was.
But listen, then Betty White passed away, and it went from 2,000 to like 175,000 within 6 months.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And so yeah, and then the Seinfeld group, that's been pretty big for a while now. It's like
Yeah.
150,000.
You got
But
me dying, man. Because 'cause I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know we'll get to the cards in a second, but I'm like, yeah, of course it's the slowest group. It's gonna take, I mean, it's gonna take grandma a little while to fire up the computer and get the dial up going to be able to get on
yeah,
those internets and,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But the thing is, though, you got to figure like a lot of these older women or even older men, I'm sure there's plenty of older men in the group that, have watched the Golden Girls, but they don't understand like how to spot a scammer from like a mile away. Almost
Yeah.
like with cards too. Like uh, you could be a legit collector and a legit seller and buyer and stuff and still rip someone off. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's so difficult to detect, and but yeah, so and I tell you what, I know you guys covered the card porn thing a lot. I actually like have tried to not even mention it on my podcast.
Mhm.
I don't think I've brought it up one time, even to say I wasn't going to mention it. I just haven't mentioned it. So I'm kind of curious. I want to ask you, like, if you're listening to a podcast that you really enjoy, that like say mine, I'm trying to get behind the mind of
Mhm.
an average listener, right? Like, and you know what the brand is. My brand is not talking about the hobby politics, like kind of like how you guys do on Thursday nights. You guys cover the hobby in a very like a good roundabout way, but that's not really what I do. Like, are you disappointed when you don't at least hear my take on it, or are you like, good? I don't tune into Rob for that.
Not disappointed. I would enjoy hearing your opinion on it because it's
Yeah,
like because it is the world that we live in. As much as we want to, ignore those things, and I understand why you and even the cardboard crosstown cardboard guys why they do that. But also it's like a lot of people, whether you want to admit it or not or whatever, like people turn to you and they see the hobby through you and hey, how does Rob move in the hobby? What is he, how would he handle this situation? And because like, I mean, dude, you've when you were setting up at shows and things like that, you knew that like when you start talking about where you're going to be set up or what you're moving in the hobby, by osmosis, people on that are listening to your pod, they're going to buy that stuff or whatever because you get influenced, however it is. So, I mean, I get it. Why it's at that point, it depends. At this point, it's beat. It's, I'm talking about beating a dead horse. Although I think it's already kind of lived the at least the Instagram life. It's over. Like the week has passed and you don't really hear too much about it. No, not disappointed, but would I have liked to hear what you thought about it? Sure. So,
yeah,
but again, it's cool. I mean, I'm sure there's a million people like, yeah, dude, I don't want to hear. If I want to hear it, I know where I can go get it.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, you remain true to your brand, and it's all good.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I recently heard someone say that it was the biggest story in the hobby since the pandemic. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, as far as again, it's only on social media though. Like the
I
boom of the
know.
pandemic reached way past that. I mean, ask your who's the old guy that you said sets up that you just bought the picture from.
Vintage Chuck.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think he knows who? Do you think Chuck knows who card porn is? Probably not.
No, yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess so. I mean, social media wise, yeah, by far. I mean, dude, it was again. You turn it on, you have like 38 takes. So then, thinking back, I get why you guys didn't talk about it, and we did a little bit just because I had already opinions about that
No,
account
definitely.
before. So I'm like, yeah, I wasn't down with this cat to begin with, and then now you got this. So,
Listen, if I still had the bounce with Amil,
oh
without
yeah,
a doubt, if I had a partner, we would have definitely talked about it for 10 minutes. It would have just come up, you know what I mean? But
mhm,
I think it's, a lot of times it's like, well, I don't think I have like a really good unique take on it. And even though some people might say like I'm good with my words, I don't feel like I am. So I'm not going to be able to deliver like my take of cardboard, because my take is what everyone else's probably was. It's like I'm disgusted by it. Get them out of the hobby, cancel them, all that. So it's like I'm not going to be able to word it any better than the countless number of people that have worded it, and most people are just really good at doing that. They're good. Their role in the hobby has kind of become, kind of like what the daily news cycle is. Dustin
yeah,
Sports Card Dad does a great job of that. It's like I'm not going to be able to do a better job than that. And it's like if I'm going to other sources to get educated on it, like what right do I have to educate someone else on it?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like what makes the card so good, at least my content, I feel, is because I'm talking about my experience. So
yeah,
if I have to go and listen to Jeff Sports Card Investor break down, or Adam the Real 27 guy break down the card porn scandal, then for me, I don't have a right to really kind of break it down. Now, like I said, if I had a partner the way that you and Oz are, and you
yeah,
guys just wanted to shoot the stuff, kind of talking about it and giving your takes, that makes sense to me,
yeah.
but like Tony isn't taking 10 minutes of airtime to break down his take and everything. And so it's us, you know what I mean?
1,000%. Yeah,
Yeah,
you nailed it right there. Yeah, yeah. If you went out Mill had your thing, or you and anybody, where Ken, I don't care who it was.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So I get it. I get it.
And the thing too with Ken is Ken's not really a social media guy. So I think the card porn thing to Ken, he'd be in the weeds if we were talking
Right.
about it. You know what I mean? He'd be like, "Oh, what is it?" You know, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know. For all I know, maybe he is up to date on it, but I would imagine he's up to date on it because he's listened to some of the same content I have on it.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but
all
so, what were we gonna say?
no, I say yeah, all good at this point. It's like I said, it's already past the cycle. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
maybe it'll come back as things pop up, but
No, and I
whatever.
think the reason why I at least brought that up and why it even came to mind, you and I didn't talk about this beforehand or anything, but um, because I think it lends itself to like a bigger question of what my question was, like if something major in the hobby happens, like should I talk about it? Do you guys talk about it? Like what do you know, what are your kind of thoughts? Because next week it'll be something else. The week
Right.
after that it'll be something else. And the thing is, I don't always hear you guys talk about every little thing happening in the hobby, but I do hear you guys cover the big stuff.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
I
mean?
think it's yeah, and it's only because we're having that conversation. I'm probably gonna go on record. You'll probably never hear us, me or him, do Oz do a solo episode where it's just me talking about whatever it is, the thing. So that when those things happen, it's just part of our hobby journey. And oh, hey, this happened, so let me just make a mental note of this for future deal. I mean, we just Craig just had a thing, like you said. I mean, like
Yeah.
so.
I'm wondering like if either you or Oz were to have solo episodes. I'm trying to figure out if you guys were the pop group Wham, who is George Michael? You know, it's like
Come
so
on, man.
like
Are you
listen,
serious?
obviously Oz has some George Michael in him, like let's be honest, right? But the thing is, I think that you might be able to spin that yarn a little bit better.
Nah, I don't know, man. Nah, Oz is a natural man on
So
stage, man.
who's
So,
Joe Buck and who's Troy Aikman? That's the question.
oh, see, yeah, he would be Aikman just because he's the pretty boy and all that
So
stuff. I'd
you're
just
the
be like,
play
I'd be
by
Joe
play.
Buck, the
You're
guy with
Joe
the hair
Buck.
plugs. Yeah, I'd be Joe Buck. I'd be the guy with the hair plugs, and and Oz would be Aikman. Everybody's favorite quarterback.
Oh man, I tell you, yeah, without a doubt, man. Listen, so y- I mean, I love the fact that you guys are Philadelphia Eagle fans. I'm Giants fan, right? NFC East. Um, it's when you talk about the Cowboys, okay? I don't know how you feel about the Cowboys. I know I hate them with all my passion of 1,000 unicorns, and I feel like you probably do too, right? But in the moment, hated him. Looking back on it, man, I have so much respect for Aikman, Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin. I'm like, man, and I think that's probably why. Figures, I don't have it handy. Usually I've been moving around my cards
Mhm.
recently, but I was about to bust out my 1990 Pro set Emmett Smith
Yeah,
rookie on card auto that I just love. It's absolutely one of my favorite cards because it's just like junk wax
yeah.
at its finest.
Yeah, for the longest time, yeah, I hated them because they were really, really good, and I just hated, every time we keep losing, losing, losing to them. Then to the point where it's like they were just so much better. You gotta be like, all right, they're just so much better. So what happened for me in the mid to later '90s, the Giants actually moved ahead of them, and
Yep.
for my sports hate because
Oh,
yeah, because like you guys had that run with like guys like Dave Brown
yep.
and like
Dave
these
Brown
like
was our quarterback, 97,
mediocre
98. Yep.
quarterbacks, but like you had like Tiki who was, great. But I'm like, how are we losing to this team with they just stink? And it would just I was sticking. I'm like, oh my God. Cause I'm like, yeah, I get the Cowboys. They have Emmett and Troy and Michael and stuff like that. But like, when you guys had like Sims and LT, yeah, okay, I get like you're way better. So it's gonna happen. But when it was like that little period of time where I'm like, dude, these guys got scrubs all over the board and they're just keep beating. I'm like, so
Yeah.
but now it's kind of back the other way. Like it's like the Cowboys are number one and whatever.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. So all right, so moving into some cards here. How are you doing with the Roberto Clemente collecting? Like, are there any cards that you have on your radar? Are you going for the full player run, like the full playing days run? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going for that full player run, which actually you put me on to some guy that was gonna be buying out a collection. I have a funny story about that. So it's kind of on hold right now. I haven't even told this on our thing. I was gonna tell this on the live, but I'll tell it now.
So, real quick, a guy hits me up and is like, "Hey, Rob, Um, I'm actually on the verge of buying this huge Roberto Clemente collection, but I definitely am not going to be able to pay for the whole thing. And I'm paraphrasing here, but this is just what I kind of read into
Mhm.
it. You know, it's like, listen, he's looking to put a couple buyers together basically and move some cards at price and discounts. And he's like, do you know anyone? And I'm like, do I know anyone? And then I hit Tony on the bat phone, woke him up. It's the phone. It's a receiver that lights up when I call, and it's right next to where he sleeps, right on the side of his bedroom. So on the bed. So the phone lights up, and immediately you jump into action. You respond, and you could take it from there.
Yeah, so I tell the dude, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'm down to like 5 or 6 more that I need for the plane day run. So I'm like, hell yeah, man. So he shows me this picture, and it's the picture you really can't see because it's a picture of a lot of cars, so you can't really see, zoomed in too good. But from what I can see, I'm like, wow, man, these look really nicely centered. They're lower grades, but nice eye appeal. Perfect, right up my alley. Like, yeah, dude, I'm definitely interested. So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be locking this up by the weekend, and I'll get back to you. A day or so goes by. I said, "Hey, how'd the deal go?" He goes, "Well, it turns out that the pictures that the guy sent me, he told me that they're not really his cards." So, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how a guy's selling cars that aren't his." I was like, "Oh boy." I was like, "Listen, man." I said, "Do you?" I said, now this guy seems legit. Like I've seen that he just judging off his posts, like he looks like he sets up at shows
The
and
one that I connected you with.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he seems like he's on the up and up just on the surface. I don't know this guy from Adam from, other than when just speaking to him for the first time. But so something's up where some things aren't connecting. He did send me a list. I mean, it's like 60 cards. It's a lot of cards, but I don't know if these cards even exist. I don't know if the person who is actually selling them owns them. And as of today, I have not heard anything more. So I don't know, man.
So crazy story. Sorry to hear that, and I
Yeah.
hope that guy doesn't end up doing anything. But I completely forgot about this story up until you just started telling that one. But about 18 months to 2 years ago, someone hits me up. This kid hits me up that I know in person, like I've met him before, and he sends me this list of probably Mookie Chilson in the house says Rob set you up. So shout out to Mookie, Raul, Brian. What's going on, guys? So this kid sends me a list of these cards. There's like 15 really nice looking, like sounding vintage cards in a list, but they're not too suspicious. That's like the genius of it, right? It's not like it's a 51 or a 52 mantle. It's a 54 mantle. You know what I mean? 54 mantle, PSA 2, like, oh shoot, a list of 15 cards. He's like, listen, dude, I am on the verge of making this huge deal right now. Would you want any of these cards if I got them? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I would definitely take a look at them. Exact same situation, right? And he's like, yeah. So the kid's gonna he's gonna let me do it half cash, half trade, and he's gonna I'm gonna pull the trigger on these cards. I'm like, wow, there's like 15 grand in like mid end vintage cards. Mid end being like
Yeah.
500 to um and about I don't hear anything. I don't think anything of it. Like 2 days later, it hits me up. He's like, "Oh my god, it was a scam." Um, I got the box. I opened it. There was nothing in it. It was like filled with like whatever stuff. So the kid even went as far as to ship a box with junk in it,
Wow.
with nothing in it. And yeah. So long story short, he ended up sending the kid half of his cart, half the cost in trade, and then half the cost in cash, and ended up losing out. And I couldn't even tell you who the kid was. I forget, it was so long ago. But yeah, crazy
Wow.
thing. But real quick, have you heard about the Logan Paul thing?
No, sir.
Okay, so Logan Paul broke the record for buying a case of Pokemon cards for like $2 million, right? Like Shine was involved,
Mhm.
Mealy Pops was involved, all these people are involved. Come to find out, they opened
Oh,
it
that
up.
one with the yeah. I thought you meant there was like a new one on
No,
my
no. So come
okay,
to
yeah,
find
yeah.
out, right? They opened it up. It's GI Joe cards in it. They all got duped, right? But in the last few days, come to find out, all these people that were part of that group that supposedly got scammed are coming out and saying Logan Paul set up the whole thing, and that he never paid 3.5 million for a case of cards.
Sounds about right, man. Well, when these dudes like
And he
show
was
out like
doing it just to promote his platform.
that, I was about to say when these guys show out like that, and like he's standing like, I can't believe it. I was like, dude, you got to work on the acting just a little bit better,
So
because
even in the moment, you thought that he was acting?
yeah, because check it out. If somebody rips me off for $3 million, there's gonna be f bombs flying, and there's gonna be furniture moving. This guy just stood there talking about, oh, this and that. I don't care like how rich you are. Like $3 million, that's a lot of money, man. And
Yeah, but what if you
like
are a devout Jehovah's Witness and they don't curse? Would you
yeah,
still be
well,
dropping F-bombs?
yeah, oh yeah.
I beg to differ. I think that you're able to show some restraint regardless of, you
I don't
know.
know, man.
But
Dude, you're
you
talking about
think,
you're there in front of all those people. First of all, you're embarrassed. So then some dude like, and then you're talking about a guy, like, nah, man, I'd be losing my stuff, man.
yeah.
Mhm.
So all right, so I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like your guy is
Yeah, I don't
getting
know.
set up and whatnot, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire, something smells fishy kind of thing. But crazy, right? That like you've kind of turned into, at least in my eyes, and I think probably some other people's eyes, you're turned into like the Clemente guy. And right, it's like the first person I thought of was you. And I do know other people that like collect Clemente, but not, I think, at the level that you do. It feels like, I mean, you went out and bought the one of one superfractor, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's other guys. I mean, there's like oh, Clemente Collector. I think he's Theo's his name on YouTube, and like another dude, Lou Rock. Actually, I think he's out your way. Yankee fan or something. No, no, I'm sorry, he's in Florida. But I mean, there's plenty of other guys that do that. Maybe I'm like the only. I mean, not the only one. I mean, I'm definitely not pumping it, but how you say, waving the flag on Instagram. I mean, a lot. There are other guys that do it, but it's more so the vintage stuff, which I do collect. But there are some modern things that uh, caught my eye, and I do buy it, and I'm proud of it. I mean, I was telling you, I kind of had a little, not so much like people going the other way. I was on another, I was on oh, Hobby Hotline recently, and just in the chat, you can tell sometimes you get some of those vintage snobby people that if it's not, stuff from the 50s and 60s, everything else is trash. I understand that sentiment and I get it. The numbers do show that most of the time vintage is going to be the one that's going to hold its value over the length of time. But a lot of times some of those guys can't wrap their head around that people just collect also just because they like it. Like those guys that collected vintage, they've been collecting vintage since they were, say, like kids, so they like that stuff. It just happened to turn into vintage. It's not like if it always was. Like if you're a 10-year-old kid in 65 and you were collecting that stuff, that was the stuff of the day. So to look at, and I get, because now you got so many parallels and stuff. I totally understand all that. But it's not like you always collected vintage. You just, you know, turned into
Yeah.
that. So, but
And I'm definitely someone that has been, I don't want to say outspoken against numbered cards or the insane amount of variation rainbow colors. I think it's definitely I think that the card companies have really found a way to make to really squeeze every nickel out of collectors, especially if you're, a player collector or a set collector. And I think, I kind of got my first taste, which is crazy. The first time I ever really jumped into trying to do the rainbow stuff was with Mean Gene Okerlund, the Select 2022 WWE, and I'm buying them, and I'm like, why am I? I literally just bought the orange out of, or the red out of 99. Why am I now buying like the orange out of 49? And why is the tie dye out of 25 so much more? And it's like, so. I just think the manufactured rarity, to me, it kind of loses its oomph.
mhm,
However, with what you're saying, I think snobbery in any kind of way involving vintage is whack. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
um, and I was recently talking to Matthew, 1956 Hops guy, about this, about how the YouTube community seems like so like a faraway land from like Instagram community, and he was actually asking me like my thoughts on like the YouTube community and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I don't really personally, I don't really mess with any of the vintage YouTube guys. Like I just don't. Like to me, I think there does seem a little bit of an arrogance there,
Okay.
and I'm like, I don't know, you can miss me with that arrogance. I want nothing to do with it. I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it. So
Yeah, I hear you. You know what? I don't know if Mookie's still around, but he actually made a great point the other day. He was in that same chat, and because I showed some of the newer modern Clemente stuff that I have, and we were just talking about. Oh, we got to talking about that first Bowman where it shows Clemente and Babe Ruth, and they're trying to tell me that this is their first Bowman. I'm like, this is like that. You want to talk about whack? That to me is whack. Um, because I'm like, this isn't it. Like these guys are long gone, and you're trying to tell me coming out with a first Bowman, and the price tags are like 2,000, 3,000. I'm like, dude, those are like $50, $100 cards at the most. But he made a point that it's like Fanatics and these guys, guys making cards now, they know that they've missed the boat from making vintage, obviously. But if they can make cards of vintage players, that's gonna get you into
yeah,
buying Mean Gene and me chasing these because it's gonna still scratch that itch every once in a while where you like the player, like, oh, and I mean they look cool at the end of the day, man. I mean, like
a
I'm looking
Babe
over
Ruth
your
super fractor.
yeah, it looks cool. I mean, I'm looking over your shoulder and I see the Eli stuff and I can see the shine. So like when you put them on you and you if you do build that rainbow, it does really look cool. Like so, I mean, and yeah, it does it kind of whack that it's the same picture over and over again? Yes, but when you put them all together, it's like almost like just it's like passing a board on a video game or something like, all right, I completed that. And, so there it is. There it
Yeah.
is. That's what it was. He goes, nostalgia is a drug. Fanatics can't sell you vintage so they can, so they recreate it. That's what it was.
Yeah. No, well said, Mookie. Well said, man. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's why I love just kind of collect what you love. Like I don't care what it is you collect. I don't care how you collect. I don't care, any of that stuff. Like I'm like that's what I love about Instagram so much is it's a great opportunity for people to just like show off their stuff,
Yeah.
and the unique way that they collect. That's why I kind of laughed when, Oz kind of got on like if you collect Herbert and then you collect Ruth and then you
Yeah.
collect I'm like there's millions and millions of different ways to collect. Like so I don't want to hear anyone tell me which way would be whack and which way is cool. Like
Yeah.
if I have Eli and then Willie Mays over my shoulder right there, like to me that's awesome. Like I don't know many other people that like go for that combination of like
Mhm.
strong in vintage and Eli Manning golds. Like to me, like that's pretty cool. There's probably a couple collectors out there that's their main drive, but probably not many. So in a way, that does make me unique, and that does showcase how kind of thing. So
Yeah. I
um,
hear you.
I
I,
think if anyone is kind of thumbing their nose at the fact that you have modern Roberto Clemente's versus, it's like, dude, you can flex on them. You're 55, you're 56. You could do,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you could whip it out for them and throw it on the table if you really want to start comparing, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
that's my thing is like, dude, like I know, like trust me, I have the other stuff that I hope will just continue to hold its value and stuff. But I also like this stuff too. But I mean, on the same token, like my thing, I banged the drum of I'm not a fan of the hyping of these football quarterbacks. I see through that right away. It's just guys that are trying to move cards and they're trying to drum up this stuff before these guys have even taken a snap. I see right through that. I'm
corny.
sorry.
It's yeah, man.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know these guys have a lot of followers, and I know you're in your 20s and you look cool and you got better hair than me, and I get that, but I see through it.
It
Like,
sounds like
trust
you're
me.
talking about Roth.
Well, there's a
That's
lot
what
of
it
guys that
sounds
they
like
all
you're
have
talking
better
about
hair
when you
than me,
say
not
that.
just him, but they all have better hair than me. But I just see right through it because I'm like, you don't believe that. You just you're hyping it up, you're moving, and you're on to next week's guys. So,
And you know what too? Like here's the thing, like if and this is where I'm gonna say, if you were if someone is collecting that way, then that's awesome. Like
Mhm.
good for you, man. Like
Right.
your entire collection is nothing but like top prospects. Like awesome. That would tell a really cool story in my opinion. And a side note, I think that that's really cool to like when people are like, "Oh, I collect whoever the biggest bust
Yeah.
from your Todd Van Poppel to your DeMarcus Russells." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that that's the way I collect. Like to me, I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But but if you are currently collecting prospects, something tells me you're not collecting. Something tells me you're probably just flipping them. And then if you're using your platform to pump them, like that's not necessarily illegal in this hobby, but stay away from me if that's the case. And that's kind of what I hear you saying, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, yeah. I have no problem, man. If you want to go and collect Desmond Ray, if that's your guy, you're whatever. Like you have at it. I don't care. But it's the guy that's has the card and telling you that it's worth tens of thousands of dollars and this is why. And nah, man. I'm like, get out of here. Because I was like, let me scroll back, and you're saying the same thing about quarterback XYZ. And last year you were saying the same thing about quarterback ABC. So it's just the same cycle of stuff. And I don't, how do I say, like, I'm not with it. I can respect the hustle, I guess, because hey, listen, whatever. But just like my man Kevin Cormier said, what does he say? He goes, that's cool, but it's just not for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely not for me as well. It's and to me, like I don't even respect the hustle with a lot of the ways that it gets done. And the reason why I don't respect the hustle with it is because to me, I think that it's one thing to flip it to other flippers that are trying to then flip it themselves. Like I get it, but usually the end user or the end holder is someone that kind of got manipulated into like thinking this would be a really good investment, if that
yep,
makes sense. You know what I mean?
yep,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think the flippers rarely eat their young. I think they really cannibalize collectors.
yep, yeah. You just always have to think about and ask those guys who end up buying from flippers like that. Would you go back and buy another card from them? More often than not, the answer is probably gonna be no.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, listen, Tone, it was great sitting down with you, doing another episode, man. Before we wrap up, any final words?
Nah, just this was fun, man. We haven't done this in a while, so thank you for inviting me. This is definitely fun. And I don't know. I guess this releases on Wednesday, right? Or tomorrow, when we whatever
Now
we're
it's
releasing this
releasing now,
now.
day of.
Beautiful, love it, love it. So tune in Wednesday night live and see who the heck shows up as my guest host. I don't know. We'll see.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in.